we have to figure out a way to do life. And so, but I'm also not willing to risk my child's safety. So where do you draw the line, right?
Yeah, it's walking a tightrope. It's like saying no, but yes at the same time.
I have a question for you. Yeah. What are your no zones? Like I have these like where it's like, okay, maybe this could be a calculated risk, but for me, it's like a absolutely not.
The more and more you restrict yourself, if you let it snowball, it absolutely will. Hi.
Hello.
And welcome to EpiPod. Sarah is a mom to 2 little boys with food allergies.
And Danielle has navigated life-threatening allergies her entire life.
Living with an invisible health condition is so isolating.
The fear and the anxiety.
Trying to cover it up so you don't affect anybody else.
Especially your kids. Sound familiar?
Join us on the couch and take a load off with people who just get it.
We're so glad you're here.
Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Danielle.
Welcome to EpiPod. It's an exciting day because it's the first day that we can say, welcome to EpiPod presented by, I just got full body chills,
Larissa's Kitchen.
If you're not familiar with Larissa's Kitchen, you'll hear a little bit more about them shortly, but right off the bat, there could not be a more perfect sponsor, partner in crime in putting allergy content out in the world for you specifically.
Yes, because if you know me, like if you are one of my friends for any time in the last
literally only
decade,
upon 10 minutes of meeting you or being in your home.
This is true. You know that like if you need a snack, first of all, I got you. And second of all, 99% sure that snack is going to be a meat stick.
I remember one time I was having a conversation and we were talking about like, oh, allergy people always carrying snacks, whatever. And I think I like popped out some of my snacks and you were like, oh, I just love meat sticks. And I was like, something I've never heard anybody say before in casual conversation.
Should probably open up with something different to new friends, especially.
That's so funny.
But I just think they're perfect. They are, first of all, they're like easy to travel with. Like I'm an on the go person, always busy. And then second of all, it's like a high protein snack. So for me, it's perfect because I can, if I'm hungry or in a pinch or whatever the case may be, like I've got something that's going to sustain me.
Yeah.
So yes, Larissa's Kitchen, we'll tell you about them soon, but we're
the meat stick queen.
Yes. The meat stick queen is excited to partner with a meat stick company, especially one that is certified free of the top 9 food allergies.
Yeah. I'm so excited. So many times when I'm packing things on the go, especially when I'm like stuck in traffic, locked in my car, or like on a trail in the wilderness, self-service is weird. Like I really have to trust the brand to be able to eat it. So having something being certified free is like, I got full body chills again.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Yeah. We have to be able to trust a product when you have allergies or your kids have allergies. And this is certainly one really any food allergy family will be able to trust.
And you guys are going to be hearing a lot about Larissa's Kitchen on social media, on our personal pages, as well as on EpiPod. Here, we're excited for you guys to get to know them. And we're thankful for them.
Yes. Thanks for being a part of EpiPod.
Yeah. Thanks for helping us put this out into the world.
Yes. Today we are going to be talking about a word that I use so often, calculated risks when it comes to food allergy life.
I feel like you should get this trademarked. Like, like Sarah Fry / like calculated risks TM.
Yeah. You know, I don't think I can because I'm almost positive I did not come up with it, but I don't know. I just think it fits so perfectly for food allergy life because really no matter what you do, no matter what choice you make, except if you're staying home in a literal bubble, like it is a risk when you have food allergies.
It's a calculated risk.
Yes.
Oh, I'd never heard the term until you and I became friends. And that's something that I like have really latched on and dug my little claws into. And every time I'm doing something, I'm like, it's a calculated risk.
That's right.
Sarah would be proud of you.
I am always proud of you, Danielle. But yeah, I think it's important to take them, but it's also important to start small. And I think in this episode, what I plan to do at least is talk through like how I evaluate how risky something really is, like how to actually do that calculation. And then also like examples of no starters for me. Like taking calculated risks or being encouraged to take them does not mean you have to like abandon your boundaries or things that really, really worry you or stress you
Or
out.
like things that have kept you and your family safe this long.
Right. I mean,
we're not throwing caution to the wind and just like, we have to live, go into battle. No, this is, I'm really excited to hear you break it down, because as somebody who, I mean, we've talked about this so many times in earlier episodes, but growing up a 90s allergy kid, I mean, I didn't have the language. I didn't even know I was taking a calculated risk. I didn't know there was any risk involved, really. Mm-hmm. I thought like, oh, I could take a Benadryl and be fine. To this day, some of my family still thinks that. I'm like coming back, like it's like that, that Pharaoh's Fury ride, mm-hmm. that like you're over here and then you're like swinging back and like, and I'm like swinging back in the other direction, and to get back to the place that I was, except this time, having the knowledge that I have, unfortunately, through some traumatic events, mm-hmm. and just like OIT and all of these different things that have happened since I was a little kid and just nobody knew better, is via calculated risks. Like I'm now knowing the risks that I'm taking, but I'm excited for you to break it down for everyone the way you did.
Before we do, what's been going on with you? Little short and sweet catch up.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Short and sweet in quotation marks, because I know sometimes we get off the rails, but what's up with you?
Okay, well, I just got back. I just flew back from El Paso, my hometown. I was there for a week and a half, which is the perfect money spot if you are an adult child back in your childhood bedrooms with your American Girl dolls staring down at you. Actually, I love it. Kirsten, Kit, and Josefina, Betty Baby, and I, we all have our tea party. I am in my 30s. It's fine. I will not take them down. My mom's like, should we redo your room? I'm like, no, it's a mausoleum. Not. It is a time capsule. But it's always such sweet time being back in El Paso. I rarely leave my parents' house. We live up on top of a mountain, and it's just such a nice retreat to, I don't know, spend a lot of time in nature, spend a lot of time, just quality time with my parents, especially my dad. He tells the most wild, tall tales, and it's always so much fun.
Can we have an EpiPod retreat at your parents' house?
In El Paso? At Casa Cumbre?
Yes.
They would love that.
Oh my gosh. I'm just inviting myself over. No, don't mind me.
They would love that.
It sounds so awesome. And I love El Paso. I've traveled there for work some. And I think it's such an underrated, this is not a ad for tourism in El Paso.
Visit elpaso.com.
But I do think like it's such an underrated city. The people are wonderful and so kind. The food is fantastic.
There's no humidity.
No.
I love it.
Yes, it's so good. And, I think a lot of times people just see things on the news and they automatically think maybe it's like super unsafe, but I felt extremely safe.
It's actually for like decades running one of the safest cities in America.
Yeah. So anyway,
I love El Paso so much. The people who don't love it, typically other Texans, I'm like, well, then you don't deserve it. Like it truly is the gemmiest of gems. I grew up so slow, and I think it really benefited me, and I didn't realize it until I moved away and was around kids who grew up quite fast in LA. So I'm so thankful to be from there, and I love going back. I don't know if I could ever live there again. Maybe one day if I had kids, but so I was there, and unfortunately I actually had 2 mild reactions.
Oh my.
I know. I landed, and the sweet woman who works for my parents and has been in my life since I was in 2nd grade made the same taco meal that she has made for our family my entire life, every single birthday, whatever. We still don't know what went awry, but I was starving. I came home from the airport, like downed the taco. Mm-hmm. I did, of course, my due diligence of like, which pan did you use? Like they sometimes roast nuts in a certain cast iron pan. And I'm like, make sure it's not that, because you can't wash a cast iron pan. It soaks in all the oils. So I don't know. She showed me the pan. It was the same olive oil. I was like, whatever. Down to taco. I go in on the second one, and my lips started tingling, but not tingling in the like, oh, they were dry from the airplane way, like the stinging kind.
Yeah.
Something is not right kind. And half of my lip started swelling a little bit, and I put my taco down, and my dad immediately was like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. Like, let me just go down to the bathroom for a second. And then he, I think, finished his meal or whatever, and he came down to my bathroom, and he was like, what's happening? And he looked at my face, and he was like, your lip is swelling. And I was like, yeah, the fact that you can see, you don't even have your glasses on. It wasn't dramatic. Yeah. That's all that happened. I took a Zyrtec. I checked in with the providers at Aspire Allergy, and they guided me through. Nothing happened other than that. It was just freaky. Like, especially eating at home, eating a meal I've eaten 1,000 times before and not knowing how that happened. I'm sure it was, I mean, my parents have nuts around. Yeah. They always have had nuts in the house. I don't know if it was maybe cross-contamination. And yeah, I think they definitely are trying to understand my allergy perspective now with all of this new information. But it's like I left the house at 18 and we didn't have all of these allergy protocols in place. And I remember like I would get hives sometimes, like contact hives, like on my arms or whatever. So I'm sure like there was nut oils around the house, and looking back now, I can see that. So I don't know, maybe it was cross-contamination from a meal cooked previously in the week. Maybe it was from the kitchen sponges that hadn't been switched out yet. I don't know how it happened. And that's also what induces some anxiety.
Yes. The unknown is always the worst.
Because you can't recreate. Yeah. So I spent most of my time there just like, I just really wanted to make my own food.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I overcame it and I like ate something that she made. Same pan, same oil, same lady who cooked it. And I was fine. So I feel good that I was able to take a calculated risk.
There you go. Leading straight in.
Yeah. And then the second one was, I'm not sure. I see Dr. Silvers, my allergist, later this week. And I'm going to talk about it with him, but I don't know what else it could have been other than a late mild reaction to my OIT dose. I woke up at like very early, took the dose at 8 a.m. and I had my cousin's bridal shower at 10:30. And so from like 10:45, 11-ish to like 2:30, 2:45-ish, I was outside in the Texas heat. It was just like extremely hot that day, irregularly hot. But yeah, we were seated outside for the bridal shower. And I thought like, oh, I ate before. I'm not going to have any alcohol because it was pretty close to the dose. So I'm doing everything fine. And then on the way home, my chest was sort of flushed and I could like, it wasn't like a full hive, but like there were some areas that were like threatening to be raised, you know, that like pre-stage.
Yes.
And I was like, I got in a cool shower and noticed I had a big hive right and like on my rib cage. And it was not, I don't know, every time an actual symptom happens, I'm like, oh, that's not anxiety. That's a big hive.
I know. Why do we always gaslight ourselves like that? Like, I mean, I don't even do it from like a person with allergies perspective, but even like with my own kid, he'll like have a mild reaction or something will happen and I'll have thought like, this is probably what's happening. But then I'll tell myself like, maybe I'm being dramatic or like, maybe I'm, you know, over analyzing this particular thing or situation or symptom. And then it's like, yeah, exactly that. Then like something confirms it and you're like, why was I just telling myself that I was wrong? Like, I don't even think it's because I wanted to be wrong. I think I'm like, I don't know, trained or something to like not believe myself.
Mine is kind of the opposite or like an inverse version of that where like I have such high anxiety and so much food allergy or trauma that like I will get anxious while I'm eating something new and I'll be like, oh, is something happening? Is something happening? But like seeing an actual hive, I'm like, oh, that's what it's like. It's not, I don't know, when I'm doing OIT, you're constantly body scanning, especially in that first hour when you're like in the zone. And I'm always looking at like every little thing. I'm like, was that a bug bite? Was this? Was it that? But then when I actually see a hive, I'm like, that was the hive.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't a bug bite. It went away after I'd cooled down. I again checked in with the providers. I took a nap, which was kind of a win for me. Usually I'm so ramped up I can't, but they okayed me napping and I was fine. And I did my dose the next day. I was a little panicky doing it, but I did it and everything was fine. And I'm just frustrated. Like I did everything right. I waited the 2 hours. I woke up early. I didn't eat or drink at the party. There were nuts at the party and the alcohol thing. And I still had a mild reaction. Yeah. And I'm pissed.
Yeah. And you have every right to be pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not fair. And you don't know. It's the unknown. Like, it's just, it's mind-boggling.
And it doesn't, like, unrelated to that, it doesn't matter how many times it happens. It always gets under my skin when somebody who knows why I'm not eating is like, why aren't you eating? And I'm like, there are nuts at the party. I don't want the attention on me. It's her bridal shower.
Right.
And then I like take a step back and I'm like, deep breath, brevity. I'm like, I ate before. I love your shoes. Where are they from?
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to be like the best at that. Like you're like the Olympic gold medalist at that, I think. Like I feel like I don't know, would freeze up in that moment, or I would, let like the annoyance get to me for too long. I don't know, but you do it so beautifully and like casually, and you could teach a course on that.
Sign up at the link in bio. I'm kidding. There's no course at the link in bio.
There's no course yet. No.
Okay, your turn. How are you?
I'm okay. Similarly though, Graham had a few like really mild reactions since we last recorded. But nothing crazy. Like we didn't even take medication for it. And one, actually, I'm still deciding, like, was it a reaction? He had just come in from inside, and we definitely have, I mean, it's Texas, it's summer, like we have tons of mosquitoes in the backyard.
Yeah.
I did spray him like with mosquito spray, and I didn't notice anything, but about 5 minutes after giving his first dose, he had like a little mosquito bite / hive right by his eye. And it went away quickly. So I'm like, part of me is like, well, does that maybe mean it more is a hive? Cause I feel like mosquito bites last.
Yeah.
But also sometimes his don't. Like it's so funny. He's like my most allergic kid. But when it comes to mosquitoes, like they don't bother him as much. Like my younger one, me, like again, Mark's more the allergic person. I'm not really like with environmental stuff. And Mark is not bothered by mosquitoes, and I am. So like it's kind of like reverse. But anyway, so I really don't know. But again, he was fine. It's just something that was like, ugh. Okay, I'm playing is it a mosquito bite or is it a hive game? And that is never a fun game to participate in. And
like,
then,
it's really hard to come down from that. Like once you're like at this level 1 million out of 10, it's like, how do you go on? Like your nervous system has been shot.
I know.
What are you supposed to do? Just like watch a movie and pretend the rest of the evening is normal?
That's what I do. Just pretend, fake it till I make it, and then hope for the best. But then why I think it might have been a hive is because that same day, so we do 2 doses for us, like in our treatment program. He does the yogurt and then he did his peanut dose. So the hive went away. We put a little more buffer. It's usually like 15 minutes in between, but we waited like a half hour. The hive went away, or whatever it was, mosquito bite. And then we did the peanut dose, and he started like 5 minutes after, maybe started coughing. And he coughs all the time. He's always got some sort of cough, but like he actually doesn't right now. So when he started coughing 5 minutes after, I'm like, what's going on, buddy? Yeah. And he was like, and he was kind of like clearing his throat. And I was like, how does it feel? And he said, it just feels like the peanut is stuck in there. Like, I don't think I chewed it up enough. And I was like, let me look. And I could kind of tell, like, it looked like he has huge tonsils. And it kind of seemed like on one of the tonsils, like I could see almost a little like tiny crumb of peanut. Oh. And so I was like, well, maybe I just need to give him more water. I gave him like a sticky candy. They say to do that, like even give him like a Starburst. So it kind of dislodges anything that's stuck in there that could be like being an irritant to the throat. Yeah. And so we did that. And after a little while, he stopped coughing and clearing his throat. I would say about 30 minutes later, I was about to go like on a bike ride with Ethan, and Graham was playing a game with Mark, keeping him inside, Yeah.
The whole 9.
Yes. And before I left, I was like walking out the door. I was like, hey, but double checking. I haven't really heard you cough. Like, how are you feeling? Is anything itchy? Like thinking the rest of his body. And he was like, not really. And I was like, what? That wasn't a no. That wasn't a no. And I was like, well, what's itchy? Like your body? And he was like, no. I was like, is it your throat's a little itchy? And he was like, maybe a little bit, but not really. He was
way that I am like white knuckling right now, and this happened days ago.
I know. But then like I was like, okay, honey, like let me know. Again, trying not to like panic for him, like because he didn't seem panicked.
Yeah, you're not don't create problems that aren't there yet.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, Mark was with him, and I was right around the corner, and he was fine. Nothing happened. I mean, we gave him his antihistamine as normally scheduled. And he went to bed and he woke up fine. And the next 2 days, dosing has been great. So it's like, I think I'm just having to, again, reset my brain to be like, this is a part of the process, as sucky as that is.
I had this narrative in my head because I had been told different allergists say different things. Like it's one of the confusing parts about allergies, but like I'd always been told OIT, any sort of treatment is not available for you. You are too allergic, your numbers are too high, and you are too old. You are almost 30 at the time. Now I'm 32. And I just would look at kids, some of them being my friends' kids who were going through OIT or whatever. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of you because you get options and you're going to one day not have to like worry about the invisible. And I'm just like, how am I jealous of a 3-year-old? But I have a lot of envy for these kids in treatment, and I never got to do that. And now that I am doing that and seeing your kids who are doing it young, like pre all of the whatever's happening, I'm like, it's not so simple.
It's not sunshine and rainbows.
It's not sunshine and rainbows. It's not like, oh, here was this golden rainbow door that you didn't get to walk through because you were a 90s kid. And now I'm like, I could tell myself this story. Oh, well, it's harder because you're an adult. And it's like, then I look at you guys and I'm like, you're just as burnt out and being triggered by like the exhaustion of having to desensitize yourself from the trauma. And I'm like, there is no golden rainbow door. And like, it's just it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And I'm like in the process of deciding if I want to switch over to this devil, but it's a devil nonetheless. And it sucks so bad. Is there anybody in treatment who's just like, oh, really? It was pretty breezy for me.
I actually do know somebody.
Shut up.
Yeah, who's in the TIP program like we are. And she's like, she's the best. I love her. And we talk all the time. And she like is such an encouragement to me, but it's funny because I'm be like, did this happen? She's like, no, not to us. But she'll admit, she's like, I know we are like the rarity. Like
literally nothing has happened.
No,
her kid eats everything.
What? Never even disguises anything. She never has this child had a reaction. Actually just graduated the program.
Oh my gosh.
So like all is wonderful. I'm so happy for her.
Were her numbers high?
Yeah, I mean, I think similar.
High,
yeah. Anyway.
Wow.
So yes, I do think it is possible.
There's only a few golden rainbow doors, but they're very rare. Just like men. I'm kidding.
Yes. Truth. I got a rainbow door with Mark.
You did. You got a rainbow door.
Oh man. Yes. Okay. So we both had treatment, little blips, but we're okay. Both of us are okay.
Yeah.
This is therapy.
Also, thank you so much for being there for me. Like, I just know that I can always text you, like both times that things were happening. Like, I wasn't out of the woods and I texted you both times and I was like, nobody else is going to get it. Like my parents and the other family that was around, like they were caring for me, like they cared, but like I was dealing with it. I didn't want to explain it too.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do anything either across the state, but it just means so much that you're always in my corner.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, I will always be there for you. You're right. I mean, it's like I
told myself I wasn't going to cry today.
Oh no. I know. I was on the edge a few minutes ago,
okay,
and
great.
I don't know. Yeah. Oh man, no. I mean, I love you, and I'm like your friend, and I do know what you're going through. Yeah. Not on a personal level, but almost. I mean, as close to personal as possible, just in a different way.
No, your friendship really has been one of the biggest blessings in my life in general. But like when I look back since moving from Texas, even just like as an adult, like since graduating college, my 10-year college graduation. Isn't that crazy? I'm like, I haven't done enough, but perfection narrative. It's fine. Different can of worms. Yeah. When I was looking back at like 10 years. Okay. What have I done in 10 years? Like, what are the big highlights? Like, who are the like angel people who have come into my life? And like, you're at the very top of the list. Like, you just mean so much to me.
Oh, so that's really nice to say. You're always so like, I don't know. And not going to share this story here.
Oh, okay.
But like I think back to the time whenever I called you, very upset.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, right back at you, sister. Like I needed a friend in that moment. I needed a friend who really got it, and was going through something like really unique, I felt. And, not even every allergy person would get it, but I like really felt comfortable and open to talk with you about it. And you had like the exact right thing to say and make me feel better. So
I feel like
I'm so thankful to have you in my life as well.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like this is too niche to ever create an app, but we need to create like a Bumble BFF app for allergy people.
Oh my gosh, that is a great business plan. Hey, I should cut this out of the episode.
Yeah.
Nobody take that
free ideas.
or credit us.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So now
risk.
Now that I said that we weren't going to talk for 18 years,
and now that I've cried when I said I wasn't going to cry.
That's okay. Yes. Where should we start?
Well, why don't we like roll it straight back to the beginning? Like someone who like me, before you told me, didn't even know the verbiage of what calculated risk even means to you, and like how it's really led your family through not making your world any smaller than it needs to be.
Right. We're proud to be supported by Larissa's Kitchen, also known as LK Meat Snacks, the first and only meat snack option that is certified free from the top 9 allergens, uses 100% grass-fed beef and free-range poultry, and contains 0 sugar. So Danielle, like these are not only free from the allergens, they're also really healthy and really yummy. I just ate one. Surprise, surprise. I'm always eating a meat stick.
You're always eating them.
But like every time I try them, I'm like, that's a good flavor. Wait, no, that's my favorite. Like they are very good. I like the texture and like the flavor. They do not sacrifice on the flavor.
This is a true statement. Your favorite Larissa's Kitchen meat stick is your last one that you most recently tried.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, so from their chili crisp inspired chicken sticks to their jalapeno heat seeker beef stick, they never sacrifice on big, bold flavors. Check them out all on their website at larissaskitchen.com. That is LORISSAS kitchen.com. Than it already is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think calculated risk to me means like doing something that you haven't done before or that has felt really scary before, but doing it in a way that is as safe as you can make it. Mm-hmm. And so again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I mean, there are things that are totally off the table and that's okay. But I think things like general category things like eating at a restaurant, riding on a plane, subjects we've tackled here on EpiPod. These are kind of normal life societal things that I believe can be calculated risk. Like there are ways, probably no matter what, I'm sure there's always an off case scenario person that like cannot do those things. Mm-hmm. You know, there are certain diseases that prevent people from leaving a house. You know, I mean, there are extreme things out there, but I'm talking for the average person with food allergies. These kind of normal life societal things can be done as long as you calculate the risk and decide to take it, you know? So for me, like as much as I felt like that tidal wave of like, holy shit, when I got the diagnosis for my kid, and like, I definitely went through the emotions of grief and, you know, fear and all of the things that come with that. But I thought to myself, and I remember talking to my husband, like, I cannot let this destroy me, destroy our family. Like, of course things are going to change.
Big
and they
time.
did.
Huge.
Yeah. But like, we have to figure out a way to do life. And so, but I'm also not willing to risk my child's safety. So where do you draw the line? Right.
Yeah. It's walking a tightrope. It's like saying no, but yes at the same time.
Yes. That's exactly it. And how I feel like calculated risks, you know, they change over time too. Like you can totally start really, really small and work your way up. And there's always going to be an element of risk involved. But again, like just inch away at it and never put yourself in danger, but also like know the right calculations. And so I guess that's another piece of it is like, what are those calculations? For me, I mean, certainly the very first one is that I would advise somebody is like, you know, what are your allergens, and think about like the history of reactions that you've had to those allergens. So, you know, there's a saying that there's no mild allergy. And I believe that, you know, that you've heard these stories like the red sneakers for Oakley story where they've been told, oh, it's a mild allergy.
I have friends in my life now who say they have a mild peanut and tree nut allergy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell me about that. Oh, I just feel really sick for days. I like puke uncontrollably, and sometimes I get hives too. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a multi-system. When was the last time you saw an allergist? Like, maybe you should just have an EpiPod. Maybe you should just have an
Maybe you should have EpiPod though.
Maybe you should just have an EpiPen or two.
Yeah.
Handy.
Yeah.
And what?
Yeah. I think, and that's the scariest thing. I think when I hear people say that, I also have people message me on social media or something and say similar things. And I'm like, dude, I mean, you don't, I just want to send them Oakley's story, because I want to be like, look, they also thought their son had a mild allergy. In fact, they were told that from an allergist and, it ended tragically. So, okay, that being said, like, evaluate, yes, there's no mild allergy. An allergy is an allergy. You should have your epinephrine auto injectors with you. But in the history of eating the food, either before you knew you were allergic or having accidents with the food, like what has been the history of your body's reaction to it? I.e., like, have you reacted on contact? Has your kid actually ever gone to the playground, accidentally touched something that you couldn't even see on the railing and broken out in hives? That's going to be a lot different of a calculator. Like, that person's going to take different calculated risks than the person who's like, yeah, I mean, I'm severely allergic. I can't eat the milk, but like, we've never been anywhere and touched anything and had a reaction. Like, that person's calculated risks are going to be different than the person who is like a kid who has literally touched something and had a reaction.
And that's why I can see from a parent's perspective, especially like when they're really, really little, you don't have that history to go off of. So it's just so like, true. You want to saran wrap them. I would.
Yeah. And I mean, that's valid.
Yeah. That's something that when you were first telling me about calculated risks and like using that terminology, it was really helpful because at 32, I have a lot of history and like pre-OIT and even like having any anxiety about my food allergy. Like, nothing that bad had ever happened, or when something bad had happened, I didn't even know it was that bad. And so I find great comfort in whenever, I mean, just like allergies, your individual calculated risk will be individual. And so when I look at mine, I'm like, okay, like flying the other day, I was feeling anxious. I was fine. Like, I fly all the time. I've flown so much my whole life. And that's something that I don't know, when I was getting back into the groove of it, like post-pandemic, traveling more, not wearing gloves, not wearing a mask, not wearing a face shield. Like, I was...
I need to see a picture of this.
I looked like...
We'll put it in the show notes.
I looked like I was like Chernobyl or something.
Like a scientist at a hazardous site.
I went skiing in Tahoe. I think it was early 2021. It might have been late 2020. But we just decided we're healthy, we're young, and we're going skiing. And they showed up to the airport with like a cloth mask that they like found like in the back of their car, like wasn't even theirs maybe. I showed up in full hazmat. Oh my God.
Now I'm like laugh crying.
Yeah. And so that became my new norm because of COVID. And I hold on, I'm just going to stop.
Collect yourself, please.
I slowly began to shed each layer of hazmat. And so the first went the gloves, and I was like, oh, I'm touching seats. Like, what if I get a reaction? And then came off the shield. And I was like, oh no, I'm less protected. And then like the final frontier was taking off my N95. And this was like in the days where like half the plane, or maybe like we dwindled down to only like you'd see a few people in masks on the plane.
Sorry. I really just keep picturing you, and then your eyes are watering from laughing so much, so that's making my eyes water.
Sarah,
okay,
I was in full.
We're like you know, like don't giggle in church, or like yes. We're doing that right now. Okay.
I was taking extreme steps. Can you believe it? Me, the anxious girl. No, I was really wanting to take off my N95. it was like you would only see like a few people in masks, and these days it was no longer whatever. And I had gotten really used to it in my head that even if somebody does open a bag of nuts around me and it poofs everywhere, I'll have my N95.
Yeah.
And I talked about it with my therapist. I talked about it with my allergist, and both of them were like, you don't need, like, my allergist literally was like, I'm not concerned about you going into anaphylaxis from something airborne. You may have something mild, you may be anxious, something may happen, but I'm not worried about anaphylaxis your whole life. And I was like, you're right. My whole life, I flew Southwest.
Yeah.
And the whole plane would open peanuts at the same time.
That's right.
And it was always very severe, and I was always fine. And so, very long way of saying, when I'm looking at my own calculated risks and I'm having to now like retrace my steps and get back to the place where I used to live very freely, I'm thinking about, even yesterday when I was flying, like, even if the lady who does not speak a lick of English, did not understand you, is seated next to you, and she opens something, you will be fine.
Right.
This is your calculated risk. Like, you getting on this airplane, you're good.
Yeah. So like really like diving into that history of like, what has my whole life been? But you're right. If you have young kids, you don't necessarily have that history. So I think that's where you have to like start testing the waters a little bit. Like, again, not dangerously, but like, think about like, have you gone to a friend's house? Have you done anything in a public place where you've noticed like rare hives? And again, even like skin hives, like that is not necessarily anaphylaxis. It's not going to lead to anaphylaxis. In fact, like most times it absolutely will not. So like, is that really the deciding factor to like, I will never do this again because I got one hive at the playground? Like, in my opinion, absolutely not. Like,
and I think it's really worth it to say, as seen by my hazmat, I was doing that for COVID, to be clear, not for peanuts.
Yes.
But like, the more and more you restrict yourself, if you let it snowball, it absolutely will. And then getting back from that and these new safety behaviors and these new habits that you have now convinced yourself you need to not die, it's like, whoa, turn the volume back down. Like, I would just caution people, like, don't make my mistake. Don't like let it snowball to a place where digging yourself out of that is going to be very challenging. Yeah.
And then I think like another piece on my checklist is, of course, like, how prepared are we, right? Like, okay, I've already determined the risk is super low, but there is always a sliver of risk.
Anything's possible.
So if that sliver of risk comes to fruition, how prepared am I? Am I out in the middle of the woods without access to cell service? Or, then like I would say if you're camping in the middle of the Grand Canyon with no real access to medical services, maybe not the time to take that calculated risk.
Maybe don't try a new brand and that you're not sure about.
And I mean, that's like, hardly needs to be said to allergy parents who are listening, but like, just a very extreme example of like, take a look around. Did you go to the grocery store and you're trying a sample of a food? Like, double check that you have your EpiPod. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be like, I've been taking these calculated risks, I'm feeling really confident right now, I'm thinking my kid can have this, like, great. But like, double check that like, that's not sitting in your car and it's actually in your purse, And then like, take the plunge, like, do it safely because you've already done all these other evaluations. So I think, between like knowing your history, knowing like the safety precautions that you have in place and like what's with you. And then also, again, looking at times in your life, like that maybe you've already done something that you're like, okay, if you're deciding like, can I do this activity? Can I take this calculated risk? Like, have you done it maybe before and you don't even really know it? Like, have you been in a situation very similar to that and like, you didn't even know you were taking a risk and all things turned out okay? Like, I always think back to those things. Like, I always try to like, think back in my brain, like, okay, what would be similar to this that we've done safely? And have that be a little bit of a like kick in the pants to take the calculated risk. Yeah. Because I think sometimes we need that.
No, we absolutely need that. And that's something that I'm actively doing like daily now, where OIT has just like raised the allergy noise in my head to such a volume that I'm like hyper about everything, hyper aware, hyper overthinking, hyper anxious. And so that's every time I have a like, oh, like I don't want to, like that's where I prepped my dose earlier today. I don't really want to sit there at the kitchen counter, even though I wiped it down. Like, what if I missed a spot?
Yeah.
It gets really easy to then no longer use that part of the kitchen counter. So like every single time I have like, well, I don't want to because what if, I take a step back, do my little like calculated risk exercise, and I don't call it that, but now I will. Like I'm going through my checklist.
Yeah.
And if the answer is that's probably safe and you're prepared if it's the off chance it's not, I make myself go do it. Like it's non-negotiable. And if I don't do it, I'm writing it down so that I can talk to my food allergy anxiety therapist about it. Be like, I couldn't get over this hump. Mm-hmm. Help. What are some ways I can get over this hump?
Yeah. You're so healthy. I know that you say all the time, like I have so much like anxiety and I'm this and I'm that and I'm that, but like you are so healthy. Like
Cute.
The fact that
I don't think so.
I know you are. Like I think you don't give yourself enough credit for that.
Thank you.
And the fact alone that you're seeing a food allergy,
Specialist.
trained specialist therapist, like says so much about like you're committed to making sure that you're making these like really healthy decisions so that you can live a full, wonderful life. Mm-hmm. I just think that's so admirable.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What are your no zones? Like I have these like where it's like, okay, maybe this could be a calculated risk, but for me, it's like absolutely not. You're not going to convince me. Not for a very long time. Like a lot would have to change for me to go into this situation or to do this thing or to try this thing.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't go into, I know we already talked about the Asian food stigma.
Yes.
So I want to maybe I already do. I'm giving myself credit. Yeah. I love sushi restaurants.
There you go. I mean, that is Asian. So
yes,
I think
Japanese.
Asian's just the wrong word.
Yes.
But like if you
I don't go to
pick
Chinese food.
Right.
I will not go to a Chinese restaurant. I will not go to a Thai restaurant. Like a lot of the times, even when I am going to restaurants, I'm just drinking because I don't want to have the big whatever conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like a huge group of people and everybody's doing tapas and I don't want to affect everything. So I'm like, they know the drill. They know I'm going to come, I'm going to get my own drink at the bar and they're going to split the check however many ways minus me. And that's honestly saves me a lot of money.
I was going to say, it sounds very cost effective.
An insane amount of money. I look at their bill, I'm like, $350. I paid $30 for 2 drinks at the bar. Like what?
Speaking of that, sorry, quick pause.
Yeah.
So Mark, and speaking of calculated risk, Mark and I took the boys to a restaurant the other day, like that we hadn't tried before. And we got the bill. Okay. They each got a kids meal, We each got a entree and we each got a margarita. So like drinks are expensive. I get that. Like, but the bill was almost $100 for my family to eat. And it was like a casual restaurant. I'm talking like they got a burger and french fries. And it wasn't fancy. Like we weren't trying to be like frou-frou Austin food. Like this was just and I'm like, food is so expensive. Like, I'm like learning this for the first time.
Yeah. My friends always tell me how much money they're like, oh, Danielle shops so much because she doesn't eat out.
Yes. I mean, now granted, Mark and I go on fancy like dinner dates and we expect to spend a lot of money, but like I haven't done the whole sit down at restaurants very much with my entire family thing where they actually order, you know, like sometimes we would go and like we'd have their own food and Mark and I would just order. Yeah. But like, I was like, what in the actual hell is this?
Oh my gosh.
We've been spending all this money. I guess it's going to trade. Like if ever we get to a point where we don't have to buy all the allergy food that costs $1 bazillion, then we're just going to like turn around and move that money to like restaurants because it's so expensive. So anyway, okay, sorry. Backing up to what you were saying.
My no zones. I just like, so say a big group of girlfriends, we're all getting together for like girls' night out. We're going to a place. I will not show up if it's at a Thai restaurant. Could I take the calculated risk to wipe down my seat and wipe down my area of the table because there's pad Thai everywhere? Yeah, I guess. But like, I don't want to.
It's a no zone for you.
I don't want to. It's a no zone. I don't want to smell the nuts. I don't want to be anxious for 3 hours. I would rather sit at home and read my book and join at the next one, which will be at a steakhouse.
And
it's fine.
I think that's absolutely fine. Like
Yeah.
again, if you had, 100 no zones and it was your whole life, like that's not okay. Like, let's call your therapist. But like,
totally.
But for you to just be like, okay, on the off occasion, like on the one-off situation where your friends decide to go to a Thai restaurant and you're still not ready to do that, and you just feel like it's a no zone. It's a not for me.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Like, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Like, give yourself that like pass. It's all right to do that.
Yeah. Or like, an example of, I love the movies. I was a film major in college.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with film, and it had just been a really long time since I'd been in an actual theater because of the pandemic. Like, you didn't go into enclosed spaces with strangers eating and laughing.
And then I feel like movies got weird for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I think because they weren't making them for a little bit.
Yeah,
And there was
they were
like
a little
this
weird.
pause. And I was like, are movies good anymore? What's happening?
But I feel like it was last summer where it was like the Barbie movie.
Oppenheimer.
And like, yes. Like it was like the return to the movies.
Yes, I agree.
And I remember going into the movie theater and just being like, oh my God, like there's candy everywhere. Like they sell a lot of things with nuts and like a lot of people eating and then touching the seats. And then, oh my gosh, like and I took a step back and I was like, girlfriend, you grew up in El Paso, Texas, where there is nothing to do but ride horses and go to the movies.
Right.
Like literally that was all I did. And like hang out with my cousins. I went to the movies weekly, if not more than that, all growing up, touched my candy, put it in my mouth, which I would never do now. But like I'm eating straight out of the bag. I have like the lizard tongue where I'm like, but I was just like, that's an example where like, I had to like backtrack and be like, no, we do go to the movies. There's probably nutty candies everywhere, but like, this is something that we do. And I know that that's maybe similar in some people's eyes to like a Chinese restaurant where it might be all over the place, but to me it's not.
Yeah.
I had like conflicting things, but when I was home, a bunch of family went to go see the baseball game. But there's like a minor league team in town. They were all going, and they were like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Oh, I have a dinner." But my mom made the food. I ate for once, so I can't go. But also, like, there's so many peanuts there. And my cousin was like, "But we used to go to the Chihuahuas games all the time." And I was like, "Oh, we did." I was like, "Okay, why don't you tell me if there were nuts, if you see any peanuts?" And so I asked her after, she was like, "I didn't see any peanuts." I looked online, there are. They sell them $4 a bag. However, like, yeah. So I think my no zones are right now certain Asian restaurants I just won't even step foot in.
Yeah.
And then I'm like I have like the yes zones that some people may be like, well, it's kind of similar. And I have the middle zones where I'm trying to go back from whence I came.
Yes.
Like a baseball stadium or something like that.
Or at least do those calculations and like really determine, because that's another thing I missed on my checklist was like going to look at like true research. So like look at your history, have you been in similar situations before and not had an issue? Look at how prepared you are in case of the off chance. And then also, did it just escape my brain? What was the other one? Oh, research.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Mom fog. But like really take a minute. Like if you're listening to this and like, you're like, gosh, I need to do these things. Like pause the podcast and like go look for some articles about like that particular thing. If you're worried about baseball stadiums or if you're worried about,
I wouldn't even do that. Like there's so much conflicting information on the, like even within the practice, within an allergy practice.
Well, that's true.
You may have one allergist that says this and one allergist says the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So I honestly am like, as a full-time content creator and podcaster, like I'm like, don't go on the internet. I go straight to, I'm always messaging my allergist, just being like, here's the situation, yes or no. And he's like, yes.
If you trust your allergist, that's a fantastic place to start. If they're not like someone you can talk to quickly. I mean, I think I definitely don't mean just like get on the internet and Google. I more meant like look at actual like verified research studies that are showing like what is the actual, hey, we looked at these 300 people in this randomized whatever study and found that the chances of airborne reactions in an airplane are 0.02% or whatever I'm making all of this up, but I'm just saying, like, look for any kind of things that are pinpointing that thing that you're like worried about taking that risk for, and be like, okay, this is a part of my calculation. Actually, according to these studies that have been published in medical journals, it is highly unlikely that my kid will have this, especially if their history doesn't point to it. So I think that, that's just another little tip.
No, that's the perfect example. I think about when I heard Natasha's Foundation story, she passed away on an airplane.
Yeah.
And that really, I just like get so triggered and rocked by these stories. Like how can you not? It's derailed my treatment the past 6 months. Like it really rocks me.
Yeah.
And anyways, when I heard Natasha's story, it was like many, many years ago that I heard it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid that I'm going to die on a plane because this happened to this. And if she happened to her, then it could happen to me. And it's like, okay. So then I start breaking it down of like, I'm worried about somebody opening something next to me. I'm worried about touching a seat.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's not fair, Danielle, to yourself.
Right.
Because
that's not what happened.
That's not what happened to her. She ate something with her anaphylactic allergen in it that she purchased at, I believe, the airport, or she didn't make it.
Did not have it on the label.
It did not have it on the label.
Yeah.
That is a labeling law, pre-prepared food thing, not, and then she was on the airplane and it happened, she couldn't get help.
Right.
That is not what you are hyperfixating on, which is, I'm worried about somebody 5 rows back eating a Snickers bar.
Right.
Like, two different things that are so easy for our brains to just clot together. So I think really breaking it down is so crucial.
For sure. One of my no zones for Graham, so he actually has like literally breathed in pancake mix. I've shared that story. I mean, I think briefly on EpiPod before, but like, the plume of the powder went into the bowl. He breathed it in and had what some would say, we did not use epinephrine on him per our like allergist advice in that moment. But like, according to the chart, like the fair reaction plan, like we technically should have, because he definitely had multiple systems, but nothing was like extreme. And again, we were on the phone with providers. So come at me if you will, but like that was,
nobody better come at her, because I'll come at you.
we were fine. But it was really scary. It was one of his more serious reactions that he's had.
Yeah.
And that was literally from like, he did not eat it.
Yeah.
So like, I know now, granted, that was before we've been in treatment for a long time. A lot has changed, but that was something like I put into my files, my brain files, for like his history of reactions to milk. And so there are a few things that we've done recently. We've taken calculated risk recently only because of treatment, but things like going to an ice cream shop with a dairy allergy, right? Like even if they have a vegan flavor, but like a lot of ice cream places have a vegan flavor.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, then just go there. But like to me, that is just like, if you have a highly allergic kid, again, if you want to take the risk, that's fine. For me personally, only, I'm not giving advice. Like it was a hard no for me. Like I am not going to take the risk that like these high schoolers who are working behind the counter are going to understand and do everything appropriately. And like, even when they go to the back to get the ice cream, if they do that or use a new scoop or whatever it may be.
People don't
like,
get it.
No. And so I just like, that was like a dairy allergy, no ice cream shop. Again, we've done it recently because of cross-contact clearance through treatment, but like that's a different story.
Or like hearing that you guys go to Chick-fil-A and even use the drive-thru.
Yeah, we've done that once.
That Chick-fil-A is a no zone for me.
Yeah.
I won't do it because, and we talked about this not too long ago, like they say on their website, the oil, it's fine, it's so refined. And I'm like, when I was 7, you were actually the people who told me I had a peanut allergy. So like, that's a no zone for me.
Yeah.
I think about like the oil splattering. Anybody who's like cooking in peanut oil. I used to go to those restaurants. I just wouldn't order something from the fryer.
Right.
And now I'm like,
we won't even do that.
I won't, but I'm trying to work my way back.
You might be able to.
Yeah. I have an example from this past week that I did. My favorite ice cream is Ben & Jerry's Milk and Cookies. Oh my gosh. The way that between the ages of 22 and 28, I ate half a pint of Ben & Jerry's milk and cookies for breakfast every morning.
Oh my goodness.
I was like,
you have a great metabolism. People are hating you right now. People right now like that know what you look like. They
love to hate me.
F Danielle, man. That's okay. I do too. I am lucky and have a good metabolism.
I would have coffee and ice cream every morning.
Sounds like a freaking dream.
Oh yeah. I was like, if I'm going to live in a 20-year-old's body, I'm going to live in a 20-year-old's body.
As you should.
And so, yeah, I ate that ice cream all the time. And then around the pandemic, I stopped eating Ben & Jerry's because I was like, they make so many nut flavors. Like every time I would go to buy it, I would notice all the peanut butter jelly
butterscotch.
Yes, Rocky Road, all the things. And so I was like, I cannot afford to go to a hospital right now, not when they are overloaded with COVID patients. Right. And I could possibly bring that home to my family. Yeah. So I took that down because I knew before when I was eating it, I was like, this could have it. They manufacture in the same place, like probably use the same whatevers. And then it became a habit. Like I stopped eating my favorite ice cream. And then this past weekend, I was like, what can I do to like, I'm just, like I said, actively trying to backtrack and like make my life less small. Take away what the pandemic did to me. And I was like, oh, ice cream. Yep. I'm going to go get that ice cream. And I ate the whole pint in a day. It was great.
Good for you.
Like, wrote in, they do manufacture the peanut flavors on the same thing, but they like have their cleaning protocols. And I was like, you know what? This brand has never done me dirty in the past, and I'm going to do that. And it was fine.
You took a calculated risk.
Guess what I'm doing after this?
What?
I'm going to eat Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah. You're like, it's now you're craving it.
Will I go to the ice cream shop and do that? No, I haven't been to an ice cream shop since the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that's the next frontier.
Yeah, you totally could.
Yeah.
There's I guess, I don't know, you might not want to do this either, I guess, then with the peanut allergy stuff, but certainly like in the Domain, and that's like a little area, if you're not familiar with Austin, in North Austin, that's kind of like a mini downtown, or at least they try to be. And they have that's what my boys call it, because it's like they've like decent sized buildings, so they're like, it's mini downtown.
Oh, that's so cute.
But they have like a strip of like bars and restaurants and shopping and apartments, all the things. And inside the Domain area, there is a museum of ice cream.
Oh yeah.
And like every time I see it, I'm like, God, the boys would love that so much, but that's totally a no zone for me, right? Like kids are playing, there's like slides and ball pits and like things that like, I'm like,
and every room you go in and they offer you a different flavor.
Right.
Yeah.
So like
did I eat the treats? No, I did not.
Okay. Was it fun though?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably more for kids, right?
No, I feel like it's people who like to take photos of themselves.
Oh, it's like an Instagram moment.
Yeah. It's very Instagram. It was fun. It's giving 2012.
Okay.
It's giving 2016. I'm thinking like 2 years out of college. I actually did 2 years out of high school. I digress. Do you remember like the days of the bubble necklaces and like the chevron prints?
Yeah.
It's peak millennial.
Okay.
Whoever made that is a millennial who never left 2016. Yeah.
The bubble necklaces remind me of like, I was in news right out of college, and so I was like, in that time I was like on TV. So almost all of like at least the first half of my TV days, I wore like a solid color, tighter fitting dress, and like a huge statement necklace. Like it would be like, I've got the pink dress and like the big white and gold, like I'm like, oh my gosh, looking back at those pictures, and I'm such a like, not a hoarder, but like a weird hang on to certain things person. Same. And so like the other day I was going through my jewelry hanger thing broke, and like I was pulling out all of these things, and I'm like, this is horrible. Like, why have I held on to these things? And then I'm like, I should give these away, but I'm like, who's gonna want them? Who's gonna want these?
Sarah,
Somebody
they're coming
might.
back.
Oh shoot. See,
the Gen Zers.
I think I threw them out.
That's okay. They're coming back, but I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Oh, that's true.
It's like the poof. That people put the poof, the skinny jeans, the low-rise jeans. Like,
I can't.
Some of these things that are coming back.
I draw a hard line at low-rise jeans.
That is one of your no zones.
Yes. Low-rise jeans is a total no zone for me.
Oh my
I was also
gosh.
thinking through, like, we don't deal with wheat, but I was thinking like, like a Play-Doh. Like we go to all these little kids' birthday parties, and sometimes they have like Play-Doh.
Weed. And I was sitting here being like, we don't know Sarah as well as pathogen.
No, like a Play-Doh party for a wheat allergy.
Yes, okay.
A weed allergy. I bet people are allergic to weed. I don't know.
I would never do it because I have allergies.
Yeah. You're like, it's a good convenient excuse to like not be peer pressured as a child.
Oh my gosh. My parents never had to worry about me doing anything.
Yeah. That's very true. It would, I hope that's the case for my boys. Yeah. I'll be like, weed has peanuts. Sort of a telegram. Don't go ask around. People will lie to you. It has peanuts in it. Don't you say.
Funny.
No, I won't lie to him. I will not. Don't come at me. I'm saying a lot of controversial things today. But yeah. And then I just think the other thing that can be like a no zone for now is like, again, I would always urge people like not to rush into anything. Like it's okay to take baby steps. So like if you haven't taken the baby steps, don't think that you like a no zone can be the thing if you haven't done the baby steps to get to that thing. You know what I mean? Like if there's like a big thing that you're like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't do it right now. It's like, well, there's like levels of that. So like start there and work your way up. But like truly the worst thing you can do is let fear control your life. Like it is completely debilitating to live in fear. So like do what you can to make your own mental checklist and take these calculated risks so that your life really can be fuller and more beautiful and your kids can like have the life that they deserve.
Yeah. No, then it's there's a big difference between fearing something very real and that is a hard no, and like eating a PB&J for me, and fearing something that actually don't need to be fearing. My eye is tearing. I'm not crying.
Sure.
Sure. I'm still crying over the Play-Doh. No. Yeah. Like for example, I get a lot of comments too about air travel and like, oh, I haven't been abroad since before the pandemic, but my family used to go at least once a year, someplace for like almost a month sometimes. Like we would be in the middle of nowhere, Africa, or we'd be in like the foothills of Italy. Like we would be in all these like weird remote places, and people would be like, and how are you doing that with the allergy? And I'm like, I've never thought twice about it. What do you mean? Like Pierre is taking care of me. And now I look back at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Like, how am I going to get back there? And it's like, now I feel less that way, but it's getting comfortable with a lot of domestic flights. And then you go back to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, could I have gone from pandemic being super like white knuckling everything for COVID and because of my allergy, and it just like all meshed together and got so heightened? Am I going to jump on a plane and go to London like the very next day? No. But like now I'm running around flying over like I used to.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah, whatever the baby step is for you,
take it.
Take it.
Yeah. I have a couple of quick things I wrote down that I like feel like is maybe a good exercise to share.
Yes.
And then after that we need to get to question and answers. But so one example that I thought of is like staying at the park, even if you see your child's allergen being eaten by somebody else. So that's a thing that I feel like a lot of food allergy moms run into at like early ages, right? Like you get to the park, you've scanned it for wrappers and whatnot. You feel like, okay, we're good. This is our first calculated risk. We're here.
Yeah.
And then somebody shows up and they are eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, obviously it's different if they're eating it on the monkey bars versus like eating it at the table, but either way it's present.
Right.
And you're like, oh shoot.
Oh no.
For me, like the calculated risk or like the thing that I'm thinking of is like, okay, but they're keeping their distance. You're reminding your kid, you can remind your kid like, hey, don't touch, this because it has this, or like, I don't know, if that kid was just on this area over here, hey buddy, let's stay over here. You don't even have to tell them why, but like you've maybe reminded
like no
them,
hands in your mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
No hands in your mouth. Or maybe like you're more frequently wiping their hands casually. Again, you don't have to tell them we're doing it because that kid is over there eating peanut, like you don't have to do that. Like
sticky, whatever.
You're watching them a little more closely. You know that you have the EPIs, like, plus, statistically that like the risk of having anaphylaxis from touching even that handlebar after the kid that ate the PB&J, like are very, very low. So like, to me, that's like I was able to stay at the park even after the kid started eating my kid's allergen because I evaluated these things. Like that to me is a calculated risk.
That is so healthy. Like I'm like, if I was describing this to my therapist, she'd be like, good. Good job. Yes. Good job. That's exactly what I want you to do.
And then the other one we've talked a little bit that I kind of like jotted down was like, again, eating at a new restaurant. So like, why is it a calculated risk? Because you've called ahead, most likely. You've checked the menu already. You already know that there's probably something safe there on the menu. You've walked in, you've talked to the waiter, maybe you've even talked to the chef. You've talked to them about like specifics of your allergy and, hey, can you remember this? Can you remember that? You have your Epis and you don't have something important later in that day. So like, you know, if you have some big event or like you've got a babysitter that night for your kids, like, I don't know, maybe I personally wouldn't, you can, I'm just saying like, I maybe personally wouldn't have tried like a new restaurant a few hours before like Mark and I are planning to go somewhere and leave the kid with a babysitter.
Right.
Like, so again, you don't have anything going on and you've done all these other things. To me, that's like, okay, I've made a calculated risk. We can do this. We can move forward. So
yeah, being really mindful again of like, what is very low risk and you're prepared and what isn't. And then making yourself do what you know is safe with an asterisk. Anything can happen. But
right.
Yeah.
Start small, but start somewhere.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's do calculated risk. Let's do questions.
Let's do calculated risk.
We've already done that for the last hour. No, let's do questions.
Yeah.
And the question and answer segment, again, we're excited to say is brought to you by InchBug.
Yes. Thank you, InchBug. InchBug is a waterproof label company.
Yes.
And I know that your family uses them.
Yes, we stick them on lunch boxes and water bottles. They don't go anywhere, even in the washing machine. And they have specific customizable allergy labels. Also, the owner is actually a food allergy mom who's starting OIT, actually. But yes, thank you so much, InchBug. We love the product, highly recommend, and thank you for believing in us here on EpiPod.
If you want to check InchBug out, we have a little code for you. It's EpiPod 25, and it is linked in the show notes.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Hey, what are your thoughts on cutting boards? I've had plastic cutting boards up until recently when I found out how horrible they are. Same. Anyways, do you designate cutting boards specifically to your food allergy kiddo, or do you use wood? Does it worry you that food gets cut into the board and cross-contamination could occur? P.S. Love your podcast. It's my lifeline. That is so kind. And also, I had this thought about cutting boards recently. I have my wood one. And I have my plastic one, and I still am using my plastic one because I still drink out of plastic water bottles.
I know.
And I'm like, whatever.
Microplastics, we're all dying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not good, but it also.
Yeah. But no, as I was literally cleaning my cutting board last night thinking like, does wood, like when I'm at an Airbnb, would I use a wood cutting board because what has been cut into it?
We really don't. I mean, like, again, we're not super like high anxious people like that, but like, that I won't at an Airbnb. Like if it's not my own, we're not going to use a wood cutting board because I mean, it does like kind of leach in.
Totally.
I mean, and again, I think again, talking about risk, like I think it's very low, but like, again, we're like, usually for an Airbnb, we're on vacation. I'm not trying to have a reaction on vacation. You know what I mean? So like, to me, it's just not worth it in that moment. Like if I need a cutting board, I'll just like cut on clean the counter and cut it there. Or like, I don't know, find something else, put a paper towel down, like something like that. At home, I mean, obviously I think you could designate a cutting board, as much as plastics are maybe not the best for, I don't know, whatever reason. What do you say? Health, society, not society, what's the word?
They're a menace to society. They're not eco-friendly.
Some people would say like the really crunchy people out there, again, they're going to come for me.
Not crunchy.
I'm like medium crunchy. I mean, I'm not like crunchy, but I'm like, I'm crunchy on certain things.
When my friends from California, I was there for a decade. So some of my very, very best friends still live there. And whenever they come to visit me here in Austin, one of my friends comes in, she goes, "You don't have a recycling system?" And I was like, "Oh, what?"
Well, that actually surprises me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got to recycle.
Sarah, they throw them into the same place anyways.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Not in Austin.
I'm going to do some research. I'll bring it back to you.
Oh my, they do not. There's a whole separate truck.
I don't know about that.
Oh, maybe not at an apartment, but like at our house, like we have 2 different bins, like a whole bin just for recycling, like a big one.
Big boxes, but like food things, like if you don't rinse them out correctly, the whole thing gets tossed into the landfill. How much recycling is even happening?
You definitely have to like know how to do it.
I don't know how to do it.
We've gone on a tangent.
Yes.
But okay, so I would say yes, if you feel like you need to have a different cutting board.
Yes.
Or like dispose of the wooden ones or anything that like you said before, like the pans that you don't like really wash because it's like soaking in. Like, I mean, again, I think the risk is small. You could probably find a research study, but like when it's not my own, I'm certainly not going to use that. That said, like we just generally wash like pots and pans and things with soap and water and have not had an issue even like when Graham was highly allergic. Like we didn't throw out, like when we had Graham and found out he was severely allergic to these things, we did not go in and like
rebuy everything,
rebuy our pans and rebuy it. Like we just like highly sanitized them and moved on. Again, we don't have allergens in our house either, except for the treatment things now, but like we weren't a household that decided to do that. So I think if I did have a bunch of peanuts and milk products in the house, I probably would have a separate cutting board for that. But as far as like how worried do you need to be, I think if you're like adequately cleaning or like putting it on the Sani setting in the dishwasher, like from everything I've read, and again, do your own research, but it's okay. Like it's not that much to worry about.
I have kind of done both scenarios. Like all my young adult life, all of my 20s in LA, I had a gazillion roommates. We shared all the pots, all the pans, all the spatulas, all the cutting boards. And I don't remember if they were wood or plastic, probably plastic, knowing me. And honestly, probably wood, knowing the crunchies. But like every little thing was shared and I never had a problem. But now when I'm home in my hometown, my parents do make, like, I have seen them cut up nuts on the cutting board that's always out next to the sink. And so I do have a cutting board in a different pantry. It's not like the food allergy cutting board. I just know they don't use it very much.
Yeah.
So I'm like, like, let me use this one. So yeah, I think it's like different things for different scenarios.
Yeah.
And like what you're comfortable with at that time. But as someone who's done both pretty intensely, it's always been fine.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think, you have to, I'm trying to look back at the,
I do think like for when I'm out at wine bars, which you know is a great passion of mine. When people order a charcuterie, I'm always aware that they're almost always wood and they almost always have nuts on them.
Yeah.
And like, you can see where it's been cleaned off, but like you can see like an oil or like where the berries were. And I'm like, that is not something I would ever do. I'm not going to order something. I have sometimes asked, like when I see something on the table next to me come out on a wooden like thing, I will specify like, I don't want any wooden platters for my stuff. Like plates, please.
Yeah.
They're like, oh great. Totally. We understand.
Can be a no zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good question for this episode. So like go through and make your decision on like, is this a calculated risk you want to take? And like, if it's as simple as like for your anxiety right now, buying a separate small cutting board, do it. Who cares? It's $10 at Target. You know what I mean? Like do it, but also know that I think the risk is relatively small and like, you're more than likely going to be okay. And if that small, tiny chance that it's not, like you are prepared and ready.
I always just default, like I can message my allergist. So, and I do see him frequently because of OIT appointments. So my default is I will always ask him. And my rule is I'm only allowed to ask him once. Like I'm not seeking, like, I'm not going to like then go home and not decide to do what he says and then ask 3 months later.
Right.
I only am allowed to ask him a question one time and then I go and do it. Just like he said.
You're very healthy.
Thank you. Yeah. I still don't believe you.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
Okay.
All right. Question 2. Do your boys, this was a question specifically to me, but I think would be great for us both to answer. Do your boys wear medical bracelets? My son is starting kindergarten in September, and I am debating getting one for allergies and asthma. Did you ever wear one as a kid?
No, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. I mean, and it probably really wasn't as much in the 90s. So Graham and Ethan do not wear anything. We definitely have labels, like i.e. InchBug labels on things. We also have like tags that we put on the book bag. But Graham, I don't think bracelets are bad necessarily. Like I'm not like, absolutely not for this reason. Like I think when they're really little, I think age makes a difference. I think when they're really little, a bracelet probably could be super helpful. Like when they can't really speak and talk for themselves, like great. There's also no issue, I think, at that point when they're super little with any kind of like labeling, like getting like labeled allergy kid or like having any kind of social weirdness around that. But Graham has always been like a kid who doesn't like stuff on his body. He doesn't even like sticker, you know, when you're like finished doing something like the dentist or whatever, and they're like, here's a sticker. And Graham's like, I don't want that.
I want a sticker.
Like never has he wanted like stuff on his body or his clothes. He doesn't like tags. Like he's kind of
sensory.
Yes. Yeah. And so I was just never going to fight him on it. Like I'm always with you anyway. Now, granted, this kid that is asking, this parent who's asking this question has a child going into kindergarten. So like, now the kid is not going to be with her. So it is a different story in that regard. I've always sent the boys to a preschool daycare type situation. And again, just labeled all of their things, not their person, you know? And of course had very, very detailed conversations with their teachers and the daycare center's president or, you know, manager or whatever. Right. And for me, that felt like enough. I'm very hesitant as he's getting older to label him on his clothing or with a bracelet at all, because I mean, where it really should never come up as like something they're bullied for, or, you know, like kids should never be that mean. Like kids are mean. And I just don't, it's nothing he should be ashamed of, but also I don't necessarily think it is something that defines him in that way. Like I think there's ways to keep him safe without wearing a medical bracelet. Again, when they're younger, I think that's a different story. Or if they want to wear one, if you're like, hey, I could get you this bracelet, and you know, if you're telling it to your kid and they're like, yeah, I love that color, like I would wear that all the time, you know, like sure, why not? Like if they're into it, do it. But I think I would, as going into kindergarten age, would probably ask my child, get their feedback, and then if not, like just take all the other precautions besides like labeling their body person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never wore a medical bracelet. I was never labeled. I never had labels on any of my things.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to check in with my mom. There was like a pack of boys like who were the biggest bullies ever, not just to me, to everybody. Like they were just this like pack of 4 literal hyenas. And I remember them bullying me for a lot of things, but never for the peanut allergy. I can't think of ever once being bullied.
Yeah.
Or othered because of the peanut. Thank God.
Right. Because that's not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, oh my gosh, totally. I'm going to ask my mom. I don't think I was ever bullied, and I'm wondering if it's because I was never labeled.
Yeah. I mean,
it was just not a weird thing.
People really didn't know as much about it. Like you kind of just, yeah. Well, and also like, but I'm saying like, I'm sure there were a lot of kids in your class who like didn't even know you had a peanut allergy.
Oh my God. I remember going on our outdoor ed trip, which I think I mentioned this, where like we were camping in the woods for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
No cell service. Yeah. And I was in a specific group because the only like, they tried to place you with people who weren't in your regular friend group. So you'd come out of the woods with like new friends. And I'm like, why are you forcing me to be with these weirdos? But the one of the other kids was the only other person in my whole school who had a peanut allergy. And I thought, well, this is so dumb. Like, of course they can have peanut. I'll just have the cheddar. There's no place to wash your hands.
Yeah.
There's no like what, it could get messed up. And like, there's no cell service. Now looking back, I'm like, hello.
That was too risky.
Yeah, but I remember having that thought of like, why would you put us together because we have peanuts? Like that's the closest I ever remember feeling as like being the peanut kid.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think times have definitely changed, obviously, and I think more kids have allergies, you know, in the classroom. So I think education in the classroom is also something I'm going to try. I did a little bit of it in kindergarten, but life has been like really busy for us. But I'm kind of on my bucket list is for first grade to like put together some pamphlets or information, like go for story time and stuff, and really try to like educate the class, like the kids themselves about allergies, because I think that's another thing is like, it's good for them to know about it, not just to protect my own child, but also just to like have awareness and empathy of other people's conditions, right? They learn about all things, you know, similar things like different groups of people who are marginalized and, you know, other things like that. Like, well, this is something that, especially because there's someone in your class, we should know about and understand and have empathy for. So I think doing things like that, obviously educating the staff, putting together all your like documents, information, 504, and then like labeling things to where, if they're in the lunchroom and the lunch monitors new that day or it's a volunteer, like it's going to maybe catch their eye as they're flipping their lunchbox open so that they can be like, oh, he must have an allergy, you know, and like that's kind of enough on top of my own child already having like a really good firm understanding of allergies.
Yes. That's what I was going to say is we've talked about this before where you're like, it depends on the kid. Yeah. Like if you have a kid, despite their allergy, who's just putting everything in their mouth and eating and trying new things all the time.
Ethan.
Yikes. But like if you have a Danielle who I literally I didn't want, not because of the allergy, 0% because of the allergy. This was before I even had my first like, oh wow, she has a nut allergy. Yeah. I remember being like, this is going to sound bad, but like I wanted nothing to do with strange food. I was so picky. Yeah. I only wanted my thingy cut in a princess shape. If my mom didn't give it to me, I didn't want it. And like, I never felt left out because I was just like,
you don't want their food anyway.
I was like, what are you guys eating?
Yeah.
What the heck are you eating? That is so gross. I'm glad you like it. It's your birthday.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. So I think, I don't know. I think about it like if I had a kid, I would want to put a stamp on their forehead. Yeah. To tattoo that will disappear when they turn 18. Yeah. But like as the person who lived it, I'm like, for what?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably person to person, like kid to kid, but that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Cool.
Yeah.
This was so fun.
So fun. Yes. And we'll be back again next week to do it again.
Next week. Thank you so much to Larissa's Kitchen and to InchBug.
Our presenting sponsor, our Q&A sponsor. Yeah. We're so excited to have a team of brands that you can trust, that we can trust, that are wanting to support the allergy community. So thank you so much.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next week.